Cold open question of the day, Wes Goldberg. We have teams that have actually won playoff series, made the NBA Finals this year to talk about. So we're gonna get to Luka, talk a ton about him on today's show. But I got something that's been on my mind, crawling at me this week a little bit, eating at me. The Lakers still have an open coaching job. It has been reported now, vis-a-vis reporting about the Cavs coaching search, because they are interviewing James Borrego as well, that the Lakers are interviewing James Borrego a second time. Yet, every single person you read, hear talk about this, speculate about this, with any kind of information about the Lakers, seem to think JJ Redick is going to be the head coach of the Lakers. And I understand there's like the finals thing with him, and there's maybe something there or whatever. But let me just ask you this. Why would the Lakers not just hire James Borrego, who's like been an actual NBA head coach? I just don't really actually understand this at the end of the day.
I mean, this is a couple of reasons, right? The Lakers love stars. The Buss family loves stars. They love the flash. They love the big name. And it's not a secret. They're very open about that, right? Jeannie Buss is very much like, we're a star town. We're going to do whatever it takes to keep LeBron James because we're a star town. And JJ Redick is a star. He's a media star, and James Borrego is definitely not a star. I think the average Laker fan knows JJ Redick and does not know James Borrego. Should that matter in a coaching search? Not even a little bit. Does it matter for the Lakers? A lot of it. And that's sort of where we are. I think let's also keep in mind who's in charge of making the decisions here. It's probably mostly Jeannie Buss and a little bit Rob Pelinka, but it's very like JJ Redick has essentially been interviewing for this job via the ESPN broadcast or the podcast clips that I'm sure Jeannie Buss has seen on her Instagram feed and all these things. And she's probably like, wow, he really knows ball. I don't think he knows basketball anymore. Like he was always a high basketball IQ player when he was playing, but I don't think that he knows basketball in any sense of that. That's more than, I don't think he's in like the top 1 percentile of basketball knowers. I think he just knows ball because he played in the NBA for a really long time. I think there's a lot of people like that. Jason Kidd is probably like that and things like that. Does he have any leadership skills? All these things. I don't know. Maybe that comes across in interviews. I'm with you. I think they should go with somebody who's established. I don't know what it is with the Lakers, but they love to go find first-time head coaches. Darvin Ham was a first-time head coach. That didn't work, right? I don't know why they're going in this direction, but can I flip this around? If you're JJ Redick, why the hell would you take the Lakers head coaching job? You've built a media empire. You're good at this.
Been thinking about this, Wes.
People like you. If you walk away, I don't know what you do, but this whole thing that you've built it loses the figurehead. I don't know what happens to 3-2-1 Productions and Old Man and the Three and all these other things that you've done. And you're going to go to a job that you're probably going to get fired from because the Lakers change coaches on average every 2 years over the last 2 decades. Why would you do this?
Yeah, I've had the same thought. Having heard him, I mean, he did this interview on Pablo Torre once, and he's talked about this on his own platforms before, where I think he does like miss life inside the NBA. Like, I think there's part of that he really misses, and sure. I think look, he seems like a really ambitious guy. This is also like jumping squarely into the deep end, and that is interesting. It's also interesting, like on top of this, it would be so weird to have your first head coaching job and almost like and how it would prepare you for other jobs. To me, would be like a really interesting question to ask, because like eventually you would have another job, whether it's with this team or whether it's somewhere else. You're coaching LeBron James towards the end of his career with the Lakers, right? And all the reporting about like their assistant coaching staff is they're going to assemble like the Avengers of assistant coaches, basically, right? To like support him, which is like good. I get that, but what does that also mean? Like, are they setting you up to like have someone in case like this just blows up in their face in 6 months, and then Sam Cassell is suddenly the head coach, like, or James Borrego is like on the staff and is suddenly the head coach of the Lakers? Anyway,
probably, and that's okay. Right? That's essentially what Steve Kerr did when he left the broadcast group.
Why would you take, if you're JJ Redick in this position, why do you take this job then? It's just like an open question to me.
Because if they're going to give you all the support, and here's my guess, Chris, is I know I made the opposite argument already, and I'm with you. I don't know why, because you're right. If Redick leaves, the only reason he leaves, he's got everything he wants. It's just pure competitive thrill. That's why you leave what you're doing now, which is a pretty cush gig, to go back into the throes of NBA life. But when you hear language like they view him as their next Pat Riley or something like that, that to me is very dangerous. My guess is that when he's going to get hired as the head coach, and then when he does, that he's going to have some personnel say also. I think they're going to try to elevate him into just this czar type of role, like this thing that guys like Stan Van Gundy had in Detroit, and what Quinn Snyder seems to have in Atlanta and stuff like that, where you're going to have personnel say. And I don't know. That doesn't seem like a great idea, but it's going to be really interesting. If I'm a Lakers fan, though, whatever, man. I don't know. It's just whatever. You've got LeBron, you've got Anthony Davis, you might have JJ Redick. Maybe this is all just genius stuff by JJ Redick, who's just going to use the Lakers as leverage to get a great deal from ABC and Disney and all this stuff. And
he gets like him and like McAfee have back-to-back blocks.
Yeah, it's something like that. But you know what? More power to him. I'm rooting for it though, because these post-game press conferences are going to be incredible. They're going to be like little miniature podcasts. What time? When does JJ Redick, how does he handle it?
That or he shuts off the water. It's one or the two. He's either going to be awesome.
He can't. He does not have it in him to shut off the water. That guy liked to talk when he was a player. That guy loves to talk now. He firmly believes that he's the smartest person in the room, and he acts like it. And sometimes he is, but he's going to love those post-game press conferences.
Yeah. All right, on to this show. Let's talk about teams that made the NBA Finals. The Dallas Mavericks did it. They are headed to face the Boston Celtics. It's the playoffs of Luka Doncic, and what is next for the Wolves? That's all coming up today on the Just Basketball Show. Hey there, welcome in to the Just Basketball Show, your 3 times a week show covering all things hoops. I'm Chris Manning. That is Wes Goldberg. This is your Friday edition. Follow, rate, review on your podcast app platform of choice if you have not already. Hit subscribe on the Just Basketball Fans YouTube channel. You can check us out on TikTok, Instagram, and X, where we're doing all kinds of other social content. Want to tell you about today's sponsor and that we are powered by BetMGM. If you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use bonus code JustBasketball and you'll get up to $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. Here's how it works. Step 1, you download the BetMGM Sportsbook app on iOS or Android and sign up using our code JustBasketball. Step 2, deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game. Step 3, you will receive up to $1,500 back in bonus bets if your bet loses. And just make sure to use our bonus code JustBasketball when you sign up. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Must be 21 years or older to wager. Terms and conditions apply. Over on our TikTok and Instagram pages, I will be doing some betting content about the NBA Finals, Finals MVP, series props, all that stuff via BetMGM. Let's look for that over the weekend to give you a couple days to stew on it ahead of the finals, because we have a little bit of a runway here now before the NBA Finals start now, because, Wes, the Dallas Mavericks did it. They won in 5 games. They combined 9 games across the 2 conference finals. Is not something I had. I would have nuked the over on whatever the over-under is, I think, and we definitely hit whatever under is. That's not a real bet, but that I would have hit the under. And Dallas did it, and it starts with Luka. But we should talk Dallas as a big picture team first, because, I mean, this is a team that, I don't know where they would have been on your exact list of teams we would have thought of getting to the finals, where you would have had them on your West tiers. Maybe next year we should rank. Maybe next year as an episode, just going to throw this out now, we should rank every team. First day of the playoffs, the episode you, Brent, and I link up and we say, okay, 1 through 8. We're going to rank each team in the conference, how likely we think they are to make the finals, and actually put them in some kind of order and try to figure that out. But Dallas might have been my 4th Like, West is really good, so this isn't maybe shocking, but a great accomplishment for them. It starts with Luka, but I think Jason Kidd comes out looking amazing. I think Kyrie is clearly getting his flowers right now. Their role players are killing it. Just what an accomplishment for Dallas as a franchise, led by Luka, but for the whole franchise, this is a great moment.
It is. I've always been really high on the Mavericks. I'm not trying to do a victory lap here, but if I was going to do a tier, I probably would have had them. I might have had them second behind the Nuggets. And I think as basketball analysts and people who do this a lot and think about the game a lot, we get very, very caught up in some of the nuances, the X's and O's, the role players, the trades, the free agent additions like Derek Jones Jr. and these other guys. And I think we tend to overlook star power, sheer star power at the highest level. And I told you guys going into the playoffs, I thought Luka Doncic was the MVP this season. I didn't think he was the best player in the league, but I thought he was the second best player in the league. I think Nikola Jokic is still the best player in the league, but I thought Luka was having a better season than anybody else in the league. And when you are riding that kind of star power, which was better than Jokic, it was better than Shea, it was better than all these other teams in the Western Conference, I think you have to take that really seriously. And the way that this team was playing defense going into the postseason, I was a real big believer in what this group could do. And once they beat the Clippers, and Kawhi went out during that series, but once they beat the Clippers, which usually presents their biggest challenge, in the Thunder were going to be a challenge, but Luka's got experience, Kyrie's got experience, Jason Kidd's got more experience than Mark Daigneault. That ended up playing a big factor in that series. They beat the Thunder in 7 games. And then I picked them in this Wolves series.
Yeah, you did. Only one of us.
I guess I'm less surprised. And again, I'm not trying to do a victory lap thing here, but the Luka Doncic star power, we need to talk about it more. There's no way we can't talk about it enough. What this guy is on pace to do, 5 straight first team All-NBA already. The guy has not been in the league very long. 6 years, right? Drafted 2018, whatever that is, 6 years.
And so, it feels like we have a decade long relationship with him already, which speaks to the fact that he hit the ground running. Like he's just been ready to go day one.
16, 17 years old. He's 25 now. He's hitting his prime. This is the part for Luka Doncic. We all thought maybe it was Anthony Edwards' time. It has been Luka Doncic's moment. And this is a team that kind of felt like a team of destiny all season. I think they crushed it at the trade deadline. You mentioned credit. So much credit to Nico Harris and that whole group.
Yes.
Finding players who they knew would work with Luka. They were playing chess, not checkers when they made the Kyrie deal. They trusted their own scouting department in trading for a guy like Daniel Gafford and PJ Washington, guys who are toiling on bad teams, which are notoriously tough things to scout, right? How much of the empty stats bad team stuff is it? But they crushed it, man. They had an identity. They went for it. They had a plan. They had a vision. They executed it. And they have, if maybe now, at this point, the best player in the league in Luka Doncic. He's top 2, right? And so when you have that, the sky is the limit.
Luka Doncic, this is the playoffs of him. Like, this is, I think, barring something, Wes, like in the finals that I'm still like wrapping my mind around that finals matchup. I do have a list we'll get to before we move on to the Wolves as a little tease of 5 things I'm really excited about for the NBA Finals. That's today's list. He's going to be the guy I remember from these playoffs. To your point, you said it better than I could have. This felt like Ant's playoffs. This felt like for a month. This was the Anthony Edwards playoff run. Turns out it was Luka. Turns out it was his all along. He was lurking. He was hitting all the tough shots. He was doing the classic playoff thing where he's a little beat up, he's a little worn down, and yet he's hitting the tough middies. He's hitting the tough threes. He's finding ways around what he's seeing defensively to get what he needs to get done. And he's also clearly just like him screaming at Gobert with the fury of like a 1,000 suns, 10,000 suns, a bajillion horses, whatever like character he plays with in Overwatch, like whatever it is, screaming at Gobert. Then last night, like telling the fan like who's crying MFer, like whatever he said. This guy is like the edge is just like palpitating out of it. Is just like oozing out of him. The charisma, the confidence. It's just like, oh my God, it is here. The edge is there.
He walked into that arena last night
Saying,
in Minnesota.
I'm not fucking losing. Like, yeah.
Like John Wick going into a warehouse full of expecting Russians. They knew he was coming, but there's nothing you could do about Baba Yaga, right? And that's what and he just went in and just tore the place apart. He made the game his game. He was taking no prisoners. He took a pull-up 30-footer and then walked away as it was in the air, like he was exploding a building behind him. It was
like when John Wick killed Boban with the book and was like, I guess I'm just gonna get in my car. It's like I would have been like stoked for like a month after that.
And you're just there's a video that was going around this morning about like him hitting a 3-pointer on the left side of the floor in front of Anthony Edwards' face, and Edwards just looks, sees it go in, he contested it well, good contest.
Yeah.
And then slumps his shoulders like, what am I supposed to do with this guy?
And by the way, real one. And understands like what compared to like other guys is not, maybe he'll like change as he gets older. I hope he doesn't. He understands just like, I think like the rest of us, just like sometimes you can't do shit about this. And like there's people have seen the video, I think, from Slam. It's like or whatever it is, where he like does the to Cardi B. And he gets a little excited about Cardi B. There's another part of that video where like they ask him about Luka and he immediately hits and he like raves about Luka for like 10 seconds, and you can tell like how much respect he has for him. But in that moment, your point, he's just like can't do anything about that. It's just like certain times guys get in this zone
and he's been in that zone.
You can't stop them. Luka's in that zone. In that zone.
Yep, he's in the zone. And look, I do think what he did in that game. I think Luka Doncic is the best. He probably has won more games in the first half than anybody else in the league. It's sort of the Luka Doncic signature. He went in, scored 20 points in the first 9.5 minutes, and the game was over. The game was tied at 18 halfway through the first quarter, and by the time Luka Doncic was done taking a torch to the whole game, it was 38-19 at the end of the first quarter.
Yeah.
And the game was over. It was over after that. Luka Doncic, and he's done this over his career. It's one of those nights, and there's no warm up with him, man. Like he just goes in, he's like, okay, I'm feeling it, and just takes over a game and can win a game in the first half in a way that I don't think I've ever seen before because it's so overwhelming with him.
I also just can't think of Wes a guy that if I'm an opposing coach, maybe Jokic, because there's like a big guy factor and there's the over the head pass factor and all the stuff, and it's a little more like there's a little more. It's not neither of them are like elegant by any means. Like they're sort of like brute force creative artists, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I can't imagine if you're an opposing coach, if you're the Celtics staff now, or if you're like the Spurs and it's like the middle of February and it's like second night of a back-to-back, you forget for a second because you're tired after a game who you got tomorrow night, and it's like you got Luka. It's like fuck. It's like there's nothing you can really do to really prepare. It's like what they are going to do is the center of their offense. They're going to start with a pick and roll, and it's going to look pretty simple. And you're going to be like, okay, we know how to defend this against most every other team in the league. And then they're going to do a bunch of shit that, because of him, that no other team can really do. Their role guys know exactly how to run it perfectly, and Luka's going to do some stuff that you just, like, no matter how well you defend it, the footwork is on point, his size is on point, when his confidence is rolling, and he is there energy-wise, and he is towing that line of the FU is directed towards scoring and not necessarily, like, screaming at the refs for, like, 48 minutes or whatever. He gets into this place where it's just, I don't know what you do. It is... I really don't know like what the right, and it's a question for Boston. Maybe Boston to some degree is the team that is going to have like give us an idea of like, okay, is bigger guards plus bigger wings and like a really good defensive structure, like is that enough to slow Luka and throw a bunch at him and make the other guys beat him in a playoff series? Maybe we're going to find out. That's a 1-of-1 defense. That's like not really replicable across any other team in the league. And two, I don't even know if I'm feeling confident about that if I'm Boston. Based on what we've seen from Luka in these playoffs, I don't know if there's like anything you could throw at him right now that I would be like, yeah, sure, I feel like that's a good option to slow him down.
No, and that he's the ultimate problem solver. You mentioned Jokic before. Between him, Jokic and Luka, I don't think that any two players generate consistently good looks for their offense more than those two guys. And it's because their basketball IQ is so off the charts. It's because you mentioned Jokic's size. Luka's a 6'7" point guard. He could
Yeah.
throw the pass over any defense too. And it was, to me, you saw the different matchups that the Mavericks have gone through to get to the NBA Finals. You get a wing defense heavy team with the Clippers, and I know Kawhi left early in that series, but him and Kyrie they go ahead and win that series, and they decimate the LA defense. They go in the next series, and they're the bigger team against the Thunder, and the Thunder have a bunch of switchy guys and quick twitch. Physical players. Lou Dort is a problem for most players to go up against, and Luka Doncic and the Mavericks figured it out. They leveraged their size advantage. They used all of that to their advantage and ended up winning that game in 7 games, in large part because Luka and Kyrie were so dazzling. And then they go into the conference finals, and now they no longer have the size advantage. They're smaller than the Timberwolves. So then they have to figure out, okay, so how are we going to play against a team that has us beat on size now? And they go ahead and beat the Timberwolves with a perimeter-based game, drawing Rudy Gobert out of the drop defense over and over again, pulling them out onto the perimeter, doing these things, and just crushing the Timberwolves. And like, these games were close. I don't mean to say crush, but all the games except for Game 5 were close. But they did what they had to do, and Luka took over at the very end. And so they've had to play in very different ways, and it's a credit to Jason Kidd. It's a credit to the roster, but it starts and stops with Luka, who is just he's able to diagnose what's happening and make adjustments as he's going. At 25 years old, this guy has mastered the game. And what he's on pace to do, like we're talking about a guy that if he wins a championship, the trajectory of, I mean, even if he doesn't win a championship, like the trajectory of his career is top, like this is going to be one of the top 10 players in NBA history at worst, based on the trajectory of his career. And that's pretty incredible to watch. When we're talking about whose moment it is, we have to lock in and make sure like all of this stuff happening has been great, right? We talk about the pressure on Boston. We could talk about Anthony Edwards ascending. We could talk about what the Nuggets are going to do with Jokic and if that's a dynasty or not and if they still have a chance to make it one. All these things. We could talk about the future of Steph and LeBron and Kevin Durant and Kawhi and all the old heads. We could do that. This is Luka Doncic's moment right now. And if he wins a championship, it might be his league.
Want to hit some age things real quick? Just on when guys won their first titles. LeBron James, ever heard of him? First title at 27.
Okay.
Jokic, 27. Giannis, 26. I'm Googling Steph Curry. Curry,
Steph, I think, was 28.
26.
26.
26. Luka's 25. Not that is like a demonstrable difference, but he's in that zone. He's in that age where it's like 25 to 26 to 27. It's like that's kind of the age it seems like you do it. It feels like he is like ascending into that zone and it feels like next year it's like Wes. It's like I'm gonna look this up right now. What are Luka's MVP odds for next year? If you told me like this is like they might see if BetMGM has them. Like you can get them certain places. I don't want to like. You can get a title odd for next year already. Which like betting a title odd of any team, I would just like honestly, like, even if Boston like loses this, I'd be like maybe just pick Boston or like pick Philly, just because of like the West is a juggernaut and like Lord knows what's gonna happen. Futures. Yeah, we don't got MVP odds for next year yet. But like I would be like thinking about like a Luka 2025, like 24-25, like MVP, like now. Like I think that's like in play. Like that's the zone we're heading into where it's like he gets this title, it's like, well, that's the best player. Like that's kind of how this feels like it works to some degree.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking up where Luka's season right now ranks among players all time in win shares at age 24, and
Pretty good.
it's up there, man. It's right now he's 29th, but that's just the regular season. That's not the playoffs included. But you know, you look at Michael Jordan, age 24 season, 35 points per game, 6 assists, 5.5 rebounds. Luka Doncic, age 24 season, 34 points per game, 9 assists, 8 rebounds. LeBron James, age 24 season, 28 points, 7 assists, almost 8 rebounds. Kevin Durant, 28 points, 8 rebounds, almost 5 assists. Like Charles Barkley, 28 points, 12 rebounds, 3 assists. Like this is Kobe Bryant, man. Like he's right here, like on this list. 30 points, 7 rebounds, 6 assists. This is one of the all-time great beginnings of a career. And to win a championship at 25 years old, which he is now, to your point, winning it 2 years before LeBron, a year before Steph, all these things. That's why I'm saying the trajectory that this guy can be on, and the fact that they have found him seemingly a perfect co-pilot in Kyrie Irving, and a roster that they gambled a lot on, but is young and can grow together with P.J. Washington, Derek Lively. And if they can keep guys like Derek Jones Jr. and Daniel Gafford going forward and all these guys, like there is something here. And regardless of whether or not they win the finals, there's a proof of concept here, which is maybe the most important thing going forward is, we figured out how to win with Luka. And all that noise about, hey, the Mavericks are on the clock and this Kyrie trade was a huge gamble. It goes away, right? Because now at least Luka sees, I can win a championship with this group, and I can win a championship in Dallas.
Yes. Wes, let's do a list before we talk about the Wolves, and we're going to talk a lot more about the Mavs, talk more about Luka. Let's talk about the NBA Finals for a second. I've got a list for you. 5 things a little early that I'm most excited to see in the NBA Finals. So here's the list. Again, 5 early things I'm excited for. Top 5 things I'm most excited for in the NBA Finals. Number 5, tension. Am I getting sound? Oh, it's good. Sound. Okay, I was gonna ask about sound effects.
Just keep it going.
No, it's tension. Think about all the tension we're gonna get in this series. I did not know about this because I was not old enough. Over on Simmons and Rousseau, they talked about like some history between Jason Kidd and Boston. You can look that up. I did, and I was like, oh boy, Kristaps Porzingis in Dallas. There's some tension there with him and Luka if he plays.
The Boston thing is that they didn't draft him, right? Is that what it is?
Yeah, and I think there's some crowd stuff.
Sam Presti wanted them to draft him or something. Okay, go ahead. Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt.
By the way, just not the point of this. Robin Hayward just like getting mad at Sam Presti online. Amazing stuff. I don't know if you saw this.
I don't even know who that is.
His wife, Gordon Hayward's wife.
Oh, okay.
Just look at her Twitter. Is all I'm gonna say. She was firing off some heat the other night. I was at Noah Khan, and my Celtics fan friend who I was with follows her and was like updating me. I'm like, Nick, this is great content, but like Noah Khan's on. Let's focus on. Let's lock in, brother. Kyrie in the city of Boston. I'm just saying. I think there's gonna be some heat. We got a lot of tension. Okay, that's number 5. Number 4. And this is probably putting this like a little bit low, but I just really want to talk about it, and it builds off of Luka. Hard shot making in this series is going to be incredible. Like the contrasting way these two teams approach shots. The Dallas is not afraid of the hard stuff, particularly Luka and Kyrie. Boston's whole thing is kind of built on not taking the hardest stuff sometimes. Mm-hmm. Dallas has been really good this whole postseason about dialing in a defense to make you take the hardest stuff possible and running a really good defense. Shea, got to his credit, did his job, but Chet and all the on the roll guys, and they had some moments of struggle. Jalen Williams had some moments of struggle. Dallas is going to put some screws to Boston in their offense. How many screws can they kind of get in there and make things hard? Boston's obviously got the length and all this stuff to just make Luka take contested jumpers, make Kyrie take contested jumpers. I don't think Dallas is going to be fazed by that. I don't see it.
Luka and Kyrie take the hard ones so that Derek Jones Jr. and P.J. Washington don't have to, and Derek Lively and Daniel Gafford can get shots at the rim, and that's kind of how their offense is built. And Dallas won Game 1 in Minnesota because Kyrie and Luka made all those tough shots, right? I thought Minnesota's defense was actually really good in Game 1 of this series, and then they kind of overreacted and stopped playing drop a little bit, and I thought they should have kept doing it. Whatever.
Yep.
But you're right also about the Celtics. They try to avoid some of the hard shots, and that's all right. That's their shot profile, and that's okay, but that's what makes Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum really important too, and it's why it's interesting, and I'm glad it's on your list because they're going to have to make tough shots to win this series. It's not going to be 5-out beautiful basketball for 4 straight games, and they're not going to cruise the way that they've cruised through the Eastern Conference Finals. This is the best defense they've played in the playoffs, not even close.
Yeah.
And
Agreed.
they're going to make it tough for them. And to win a championship, they're going to have to eschew some of that fun, that pretty 5-out Maz ball stuff, and they're just going to have to put their head down and go get a bucket. And I'm really excited to see whether or not they could do it. And they can do it. I shouldn't say that. Of course they can do it. Whether or not they will do it.
Real question. Number 3. Kristaps Porzingis. What does he look like? What can he give Boston? I think they need maybe not an A version of him, but they need a B version of him, I think, to win the series. His spacing, his rim protection, what he's going to give them. I think they really need him. It is the big unknown, I think, on either side heading into the series is what Kristaps Porzingis can actually give Boston after being out since the first round.
Yeah, so it doesn't even sound like he's 100% yet after basically getting to sit out the entire playoffs. And so that part is interesting. I think you're right. A B-level Kristaps Porzingis might be all they need if they get the performances out of their stars that they need. But without Porzingis, this becomes a problem for Boston because he's the guy that can draw Daniel Gafford and Derek Lively out of the paint. And they're just not like defenses at this point, they just ignore Al Horford. They're happy to just ignore Al Horford on the perimeter. If Al Horford makes 3 3-pointers against you, great, fine, tip your cap, whatever. Nobody cares. Porzingis is more of a problem, and plus he's a little bit more of a matchup guy, right? Where Horford's not going to take advantage of Kyrie Irving or Luka Doncic switched onto him. He's just not. Kristaps Porzingis will take that guy into the post, and that complicates things a little bit for Dallas's defense.
Agreed. Number 2, new blood. Wes, this is not a repeat champion. This is not a star. Kyrie's the only guy in the series that has like really been a key part of winning a title before as a player. Luka hasn't done it. Tatum and Brown and those guys came up short against the Warriors a couple of years ago, and they've been pushing for years, obviously, to get to this point. We're going to get someone that breaks through for the first time, and there is nothing more euphoric, I think, than that first title, except for like a historic title, like I think of like 2016, obviously. I think probably the Spurs titles at the end probably felt a certain kind of energy because it was like they knew this was like towards the end of that run. Like those
Warriors,
kind of titles mean something.
Yeah.
2022, exactly. The guys that break through, seeing what it meant to like the Nuggets last year. That to me is you're going to get something akin to that. And it's all across all spectrums, not even just Luka or Tatum or Brown. It's also Al Horford. He's been around for it feels like forever at this point. This guy was playing college basketball against Greg Oden and Mike Conley like 20 years ago at this point.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
And he could get his first title here. What that would mean
Horford
for him.
wait, no, Conley's not in it.
Yeah.
So I
would have been cool. Would have been the Ohio State Florida Billy Donovan like
rematch.
nexus would have would have been
Billy
back.
Donovan should have just been courtside for that, and whoever was coaching.
Him like Joakim Noah and like Corey Brewer. Let's get them all courtside. Would have been sick. Corey Brewer actually should have been courtside. Wolves legend Corey Brewer. Get him courtside for every game. Would have been for it.
I think it's a great point that you make, and I think even more than last year when Jokic won, because Jokic does not want to be the face of the league, and I think we probably make too much of the face of the league stuff, but it is interesting, right? Like when Giannis and the Bucks won in 2021, it felt like something was happening in the NBA where Giannis was about to be the best guy, and it was just going to be his league for a while, and then it wasn't anymore. And then I do think that those are the kinds of stakes that are here for Luka Doncic and for Jason Tatum, right? Tatum, if the Celtics win the championship, he would have been the best player on the best team for the entire season and then crowned it with a championship. And he will finally have the roster around him that works for him to win titles. And then we'll get all those questions about how many more can Boston win and all these things. And if Luka wins it, I think everybody will say, this is the new best player in the league.
Mm-hmm.
It goes through him. And there's a lot at stake on that, right? And these are guys who can be and haven't they do embrace the spotlight a little bit more than somebody like Jokic does. And I think that's why people are excited about Anthony Edwards also, is because he obviously embraces it maybe more than any other player in the league right now. But that part is interesting, right? Because it does feel like there's a sea change happening, but we've also sort of been here for the last 6 years when we've had a different champion every 6 years. But this does feel a little bit different because of how young these guys are and because there's such a runway in front of them.
Number one, the contrasting styles of the best two players in this series. You cannot find two players really at the head of a series that play differently. This is not to say one is better than the other. I would take Luka over Tatum, obviously. It's not to say that Tatum isn't very good. This may be the better way to say that. But these guys approach the game differently. Luka is willing to get into the muck a little bit. Tatum, I think the thing we all kind of want from him is to maybe just drive a little bit more and take some threes and not have some moments of passivity. And this has not been the play. If this has been the playoffs of Luka, this has not been the playoffs of Tatum. This has been the playoffs of Jaylen Brown in a lot of ways for the Boston Celtics.
He's been their best player in this postseason.
I want to see like what Tatum do we get in this series vis-a-vis Luka. These are the two best players in the series to me. Even if Brown, I think, has been better in these playoffs for Boston. Tatum, I think, did pick it up towards the end of that Pacers series where I thought he was the better guy towards the end of that series for Boston. But Luka's been the guy. And guess what? I think Tatum's going to have to do a job in this series defending Luka for long stretches. Their styles are contrasting. And they're going to need an aggressive Tatum, an assertive Tatum versus that Luka, I think, to get this done. And I want to see it. And just seeing those two guys who I think, and partially due to the way that their teams play, but also I think how they approach the game of basketball, they do things differently. What that end result looks like and the contrast in the overlapping moments, I think it's going to be really cool to see.
You also don't see Jason Tatum screaming at Snoop Dogg courtside. And
Jason Tatum,
that a lot from Luka Doncic, not necessarily against Snoop Dogg, but there's a
Luka screams at everybody.
There's a fieriness that Luka plays with where it still feels like the Celtics are disciples of the Kyrie Irving approach of don't give away anything. Because you talk to like you hear people talk about Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown and things like that, and they'll still talk about that year with Kyrie Irving and how special it was and how much of an effect Kyrie had on them. And they all like Jaylen Brown just seems like he's ripped every page out of the Kyrie Irving playbook in the way that he carries himself, right? And Jason Tatum a little bit too, where it's sort of that cool, calm, collected, too cool for school kind of thing. Luka Doncic does not do that, right? He talks about how Kyrie has rubbed off on him a little bit, but at the end of the day, Luka's gonna rip your heart out and then scream in your face about it, right? And that's not really the Tatum style. And I do wonder if they're gonna need something like that. I'm not questioning his competitiveness or his fieriness. That's not what I'm doing. But there does need to be more of an assassin mode from Jason Tatum. And by the way, he's got his own finals demons to overcome here. And I'm really intrigued to watch that and how that plays out. In the 2022 finals against the Warriors, Celtics are up 2-1. They go into game 4 in Boston. And Jason Tatum lays an egg. And Steph Curry puts on one of his great masterpieces. 45 points or whatever it was on 56% shooting, and ties the series. Tatum has another chance to extend the series. The Warriors win Game 5. Series goes back to Boston for Game 6. Back at TD Garden. Tatum with a chance on his home court to extend the series and force a Game 7. Lays another egg. Steph Curry with another masterclass. Now, Tatum was really young, and he's a better player now. I think he had 6 turnovers in Game 4, 5 turnovers in Game 6. Kind of just fumbled that series away and those games away. His turnovers have gotten better. He's become a better ball handler, better passer in those years since then. But those things are still there, right? If you want to be one of these best players in the league, you want to be considered an MVP, you want to win a championship, these are the demons that you have to overcome. And that's what's at stake for him right now. And those are the things that we're going to be thinking about and talking about when Game 1 starts on Thursday.
Could not agree more. So that's the top 5.
Beautiful.
Shout out. Let's talk about the Wolves, Wes.
Let's talk about the Wolves.
What a season. I think we got to say that. What a playoff run for Ant. Really cool to see that franchise invigorated. Really cool to see where they could go. But I think it's fair to say, Wes, on a lot of different fronts, there are some questions. So where does your brain go when you think about this team? When you think about what could come this summer, what you're looking at, what's the first thing your brain goes to when you think about what's going on here?
Don't overreact. You had an awesome season. It was a success. If you're the Minnesota Timberwolves, you could feel good about the way Anthony Edwards played all playoffs. You could feel good the way that Karl Anthony Towns showed up in that last game and towards the end of this series. But I know that there's questions about where does Cat fit in? Is this team viable? All these things. It's viable. Don't overreact. if you have to break up the team for money, then you have to break up the team for money. I'm not ownership, and nobody really knows what's going on with that ownership group, and they'll figure that part out, I guess, eventually. But I think just from a personnel standpoint, if you're Tim Connolly, the GM there, and you're still there next year, then I think you look at this as proof of concept that this works. Everything you built works. And then you ran into a juggernaut against Luka Doncic and the Mavericks, who are having a moment right now. And these games are still close. I know you got beaten 5 games. 4 of these 5 games were close. And you beat the team that you set out to beat in the Denver Nuggets. And I think if you just keep everything the way it is, you enter next season as a legit title contender. People will be betting on you to make the finals. You are in that inner circle of title contenders next year, despite the way you lost in the Western Conference Finals. And that's all you can ask for, right? Is a chance to be in that inner circle. And the Timberwolves are in that inner circle. Anthony Edwards is only going to get better. You hope that Karl Anthony Towns can still get a little bit better, a little bit smarter on the court and all these things. I do think that there are things you have to worry about in terms of how you continue to build a team with 3 guys making $40+ million a year in this new CBA world. That's a real concern. When do you have to upgrade the Mike Conley spot, who had a really good postseason, but he's 36 years old? That's coming down the pike at some point. But that's not necessarily a this summer problem, even though you need to start preparing to answer those questions. Don't overreact to this, and I don't think that they will.
This is the question, though, I think, is that there is something that no other NBA team I can really think of, Wes, has had to go through. Like, usually when we see something involving ownership, it is the Suns getting an owner who wants to spend a bunch of money and trade for Kevin Durant and sign everyone under the sun and trade for Bradley Beal. Hi, Brendan. And owners that want to spend, and they want to, like, take the new sports car in their lot out for a joyride. Like, that is what happens. That is not exactly like that is not at all the situation going on in Minnesota. There is an ownership legal dispute. Like, there is courtroom drama going on here, right? Now, how much of this fans care about? We were talking about this pre-show. I don't know how much people really care about this, or like how interesting it really is. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
It is just a fact that this is John Krasinski from The Athletic, has done great reporting on this. You should go read him at The Athletic and be smarter about this. The 3-year transition plan for Mark Lowry and A-Rod to take over from Glenn Taylor blew up in the spring. Taylor decided the teams are no longer for sale because he said Lowry and Rodriguez could not come up with the money to complete the transaction, which Lowry and Rodriguez do deny. I'm going to read a paragraph from Krasinski's Athletic piece that came out after the Wolves lost Game 5. Quote, "The two sides are now locked in a bitter dispute over who owns the franchise. A 3-person arbitration panel has been selected," league sources told The Athletic, "and both sides have filed briefs to be reviewed to start the process. It is unclear how long it will take to complete, but it could last till summer, which complicates the path forward from a team-building aspect. A compromise has gone nowhere, including at a mediation session in early May. Both sides are dug in on their positions. The hard feelings are only getting harder." On top of that, Tim Connolly could opt out of his contract and leave. This is just like a weird NBA. Woj, I know we posted this on our socials. Woj outlined like the power structure of NBA teams. This is like just the weirdest for a team that should obviously some tough financial decisions. The aprons introduced complications. This is just a really interesting wrinkle in a summer where you would think, okay, there'll be some tough choices, but can we upgrade on the Mike Conley spot and figure out something to do with him? I know we extended him, but like, is there a younger version of him that we could go and get? Do we do a Towns trade to get another wing in here and change out that salary slot and maybe give Naz Reid more to do and more emphasis on him, right? There's all these questions. This just like complicates like what is even possible, and that to me is what I'm wondering is like how aggressive can the Wolves be in pursuing where this can go, or do they just really run it back and like that's fine, but do they run it back just in part because of this?
Yeah, if I'm looking at this through rose-colored glasses, this could almost be a good thing because kind of going back to my point, I think you run it back. I don't think you make any major changes going into next year. And if there's an ownership dispute at the top of the organization, then nobody's in place to make any major decisions. And I kind of like that for a spot for this Timberwolves team. Don't make any major decisions. Run it back next year. See what this is. This is a title contending team. If you're a title contending team, you have a chance to win the championship if your matchups break right and certain things break right. And so, yeah, those questions that you're asking are legitimate things that this ownership group eventually and this front office eventually, whoever's in charge of it, needs to figure out. But that to me is a 2 summers from now question, when Mike Conley's at the end of this extension that he signed, when you do start to get a little bit more expensive as Gobert and Cat and Anthony Edwards and their salaries go up a little bit more. You could figure that out. Heck, you could figure that out at the trade deadline if the season goes sideways a little bit at the beginning of next season. So, I think it's almost a good thing that they're having these problems, because I do worry a little bit about them getting a little bit too creative and messing something up that clearly works.
Frankly, like the biggest question to me too is not even one that we can like really even see what they do with the roster. It's like, what does Ant do? Like I feel like Ant, when we think about Ant and we think about how this ended, where it felt like he ran out of gas a little bit, ran out of juice. This feels like it's a situation where I want to see what he comes back next season and is like, okay, like this is the leveling up. Like it felt like he was skipping steps by getting to this point. And it turns out he's just not. It turns out the NBA like works a certain way maybe, and he had to like take this lump, and it's that's maybe that just how this works, and maybe for the better. But how does he level up is really the question, and that's like the thing where I don't know. I don't know. We're not going to know exactly what that is. What does he work on? Where does his conditioning level get to? I think the conditioning thing would almost be the biggest thing, just because it felt like he did run out of gas, or maybe it's just pacing himself more in the regular season, which we see a lot of stars do. That's like the biggest thing, and it does come from Ant, right? And it also feels like, on top of maybe the Conley thing resolves itself, whatever. It also feels like their coaching staff's going to stay intact. As of right now, it doesn't seem like Mike Conley is getting hired for any of these open jobs,
Right.
which is a huge coup for them, for considering how, when you read about that team, that he is so involved with the players, locked in with the players, all that stuff.
Yeah, I think if you're, I do think that there are things you need to do here. You're exactly right about Anthony Edwards. The conditioning needs to get better. And by the way, everybody's like, he's 22. He shouldn't wear out. Like 22 is still not your physical prime. Like 24, 25, 26, 27. Like you're in better physical shape at those ages than you are at 22, and he's getting there. And I told this story with Brendan on the last episode, but how he talked about doing his pre-draft workout with the Warriors, and Steve Kerr telling him, "Dude, you need to play harder. You need to work harder. You are not working hard enough. And if we're going to take you at number 2, which obviously they never got the chance to do because he went number 1, but if we were going to take you at number 2, we're going to need you to work harder." And Anthony Edwards, after that meeting, called up his trainer and said, "We got to change everything. We got to work harder. I got to get in better shape." Right? And so this might have also been one of those moments for Anthony Edwards where he just needs to work a little bit harder to get in a little bit better shape, and so that he can not finish a regular season but finish a postseason, so that he's in shape enough not to play through the end of April but to play to the end of June. And those are just different things. And I think, and the other part of it too is, can he get some ball handling help? So when we are talking about team needs, because the Timberwolves are going to have to make some decisions, right? Like Kyle Anderson is a free agent. They have some other, like I think Monty Morris is a free agent, if I have that right. They have, he is. So Monty Morris is a free agent. Kyle Anderson is a free agent. Jordan McLaughlin, those are their free agents. Those key free agents. So they need some additional ball handling. I don't know that Anthony Edwards needs to find his Kyrie Irving necessarily, but they just to that degree. But they need to find something additional, especially with Mike Conley going into his age 37 season. They're just going to need some extra ball handling. There was too many times in all these games where it was either Anthony Edwards or Mike Conley on the court, and it was up to one of them to create offense. It would be nice if there was somebody else out there that can do some stuff on the perimeter. So I think you need to address that. I think you need to probably replace that Kyle Anderson slot with somebody cheaper. That's not an easy thing to do, but it's something that they're going to have to do.
Which also mandated by like the ownership thing. It's right. It's like it's both has to be like replace Kyle Anderson, who played for more in the Dallas series, to his credit, and played I think okay, but didn't really play for you the rest of the playoffs, right? Like didn't really matter the rest of the way, and then you can't pay that guy a full mid-level.
No, you're looking at something. You're probably looking at a minimum salary guy or internal improvement from a guy like Wendell Moore or Josh Minot or Leonard Miller, like these young guys that they have on the roster. Where you saw the Nuggets have to do this year because of where they are against the cap. So maybe that's something that Minnesota has to look at. Maybe you're not able to replace Kyle Anderson and go get that second ball handler. Maybe you can only afford to do one of those things, you know.
Which would you rather, if you're going to be able to get one, and maybe like one is more the veteran cheap option, one is like a lottery pick, a drafting or developing. Which one would you want more immediate help with if you're them?
The ball handling. Yeah, I think you could draft a wing and get lucky because what the wing can do is just bring size, right? Like size is size. That's an immediately transferable something from college or from wherever they're coming from to the NBA. And if that guy with size can hit some threes and play hard on defense, that player will have his rookie moments, but he'll at least have an impact. Where if you're picking where Minnesota's picking also in this draft, which is important to keep in mind, the idea of getting a guard who's going to walk in right away and do stuff, there's just not a lot of those guys, right? So I would rather go out and get a veteran guard who you know can handle the reins and be that secondary playmaker and do some things. Go get that guy who's a veteran who has proven it at the NBA level to some degree. Again, even if it's on the minimum, I don't know who's going to be out there, but you do need some help there. And then, yeah, maybe you just keep drafting wings that you're going to have to replace these other guys with eventually.
Yeah, even like positionally, I mean, he's played for them before. Tyus Jones would be someone that I think would make like sense for them.
If they can afford it. Like, that's the thing.
Yeah, it's like because then you're getting into like you just run it back with Monty on a minimum because I don't think he's going to get more than that at this point. And then you're getting into names where it's like, am I excited about Reggie Jackson level guys, Kira Lewis like on a flyer? Like none of these guys, once you get to this level, I'm like super.
But that's what we're talking about.
The challenge.
It's not going to excite you, but that's sort of what we're looking at is a buy low option like a Kira Lewis. I don't know what Malachi Flynn gets in free agency. Something like that. Like Chris Dunn. What is he going back to Utah? I'm just looking at the list of free agents right now. It's not going to be anybody that gets anybody excited, but you just do need to find somebody that could just play that position. Maybe it is as simple as just bringing back Monty Morris on a minimum, and that's fine. Like he was hurt. I think if you bring him back on a minimum and he's healthy, that might be enough to solve your problem. That's why they went out and got him in the first place, right? I thought it was a good acquisition at the time, so maybe that's all it is.
Running it back would be entirely valid. Running it back,
yeah,
and betting on Ant and betting on Anthony Edwards' improvement and betting on that guy to improve would, I think, be an entirely valid thing. It would make a ton of sense. I think you would run into it. It's not the same, and they've accomplished more than the Kings did. But as a point of comparison, there is like the West is so challenging that like you could do that, and it could be flying logic and process, and we could pick at it a little bit, and it could still just be like, hey, you know what? The West is really good. We were a little less like our seeding was a little worse because Gobert missed a month with an ankle sprain, or Ant sprained his knee or whatever, and then it's like you just have worse luck, and that happens, and like that's just the nature of the West. I don't think there's anything. Like they should be lobbying to get to the East tomorrow and be like, we'll clean up over there. It'd be great. Wes? I also found coming out of this, if I'm them, I think two things coming out of beating Denver and losing to Dallas the way they did. Number one, I wonder if they like beat Denver and like if they'll take a second, and I wonder what that meant like energy wise and how much that took out. I wonder, because you beat the defending champs and you came back in Game 7, and that took a lot. Even just like emotional energy, I wonder what that took. And two, I wonder stylistically if Dallas just ultimately was just like a horrible matchup, and there's just nothing like there's some of this I don't know what you're supposed to do about that. And it felt like by the time Game 5 started, once Luka went off, yes, there were some moments where the crowd got back into it and they showed some fight. It also felt like they just didn't feel like they had it in them anymore at a certain point.
This team was constructed to beat the Nuggets, right?
Yeah.
And they beat the Nuggets, but that almost felt like their final boss battle. And that the Western Conference Finals, there was a little bit of a letdown from an energy standpoint. Like they did what they were constructed to do. They did the thing that they set out to do. They beat the Denver Nuggets. This is a team literally built to beat the Nuggets, and they did that. They accomplished their goal. The biggest problem is that there's 2 more series on the other side of that. So I think there is something to that. It did feel like there was a little bit of a letdown in that game 1 in Minnesota, where that crowd was so amped, and they just did not come out with that level of urgency that you would have expected. And they end up losing this series in 5 games, and it never really felt like, outside of Anthony Edwards for the most part, that they can get up to the energy level that Dallas was already at. Dallas still had a huge goal in mind, and that's getting to the finals, where it felt like the Timberwolves kind of did the thing that they wanted to do. And then there was this like other bonus boss battle at the end, after the end credits, and they're like, wait, what? There's more? We got to do more stuff here? And that's kind of what it felt like to me.
Last thing, I'll just ask you point blank: how strongly would you consider skill when it's in a Karl Anthony Towns trade?
I think you have to look at it. I think you have to look at it and see what you can get for him. But I wouldn't. I would be trying to do it on the down low as much as possible, because, like I said, I still believe in this group. I think the Towns Gobert thing does work. I think defensively, what they were able to do against Denver is important. Like, the Nuggets are going to be right back in this thing next year. Like, the West still goes through Dallas. It's still or Denver. It's going to go through Dallas. It's going to go through Minnesota. Oklahoma City's on the rise. Like, all these other teams. So I don't think that you want to overreact too much. And if you do trade Towns, I don't think that Naz Reid is just a fill-in. Like, you can't just be like, oh, well, Naz Reid could just do what Towns does. Naz Reid gets a little bit of that backup quarterback benefit of the doubt stuff, where he can go 2 for 10 the way that he did in Game 5 and nobody cares. But when he does play really well, everybody wants to get tattoos of him. Like, that's backup quarterback stuff.
Me.
To a T. Towns
Wes,
is a
me.
better player.
I'm those people. I'm those
You
people. I drafted him 2nd overall in our draft. I don't regret it, but had a little reconsideration, after Game 5 didn't exactly go great.
But you do have to look at it, because you have these team needs that you're talking about, and you wouldn't be doing your job as a front office if you didn't at least explore it, right? So, how I've got a few Karl Anthony Towns trades I want to throw at you, but how much would you consider it before?
I think it's like a 5. It's not something I'm rushing to do. I think overall there's enough moments in these playoffs where I feel like he acquitted himself well. So I'm not in a rush to trade him, but I think financially, if you told me you could turn him into 2 guys who helped you,
yeah,
like then I'm a little intrigued. And I think it's just the reality of where they're at financially means he's the guy. It's like, I don't think anyone's rushing to trade for Gobert. You're not trading Ant. Nas doesn't make like a ton of money. It's like, that's kind of the guy that if you're gonna do something here, he's the big salary. I thought about doing like 5 Towns trades, but the money's so much that I decided to do a finals list. But give me some teams.
All right. So here's my least favorite one. Then I'm gonna go. I've got 4 trade ideas for you. Karl Anthony Towns to the New York Knicks for Julius Randle and Bojan Bogdanovic. You get a somewhat replacement from Towns in Randle. You don't lose in the scoring department. You lose a little bit defensively. You lose a little bit in terms of the injury and availability stuff, but that's why you have Naz Reid. And then you add Bogdanovic, who could space the floor around Ant for another year. And I don't love that. I think you have to probably throw in a pick or 2 if you're the Knicks, but that's why it's my least favorite one. But the Knicks might call and offer that.
I don't want to. I'm going to say this kindly because he's not like an unuseful player. I don't want to be the team trading for Julius Randle, and I just hate his fit on that team.
All right, Towns to Atlanta for DeAndre Hunter, Bogdan Bogdanovic, and the number 1 pick.
Oh boy, where am I trading the number 1 pick? Is on my question, because like I'm
using it. I'm getting another guy on a rookie scale salary that helps my books going forward.
Okay.
I'm thinking about use it on a star. You can go get Reed Shepherd or something, just like a guy I know what he's going to be.
Oh, you know what? Yeah, the lottery ticket point guard guy. Yeah, or the French Zach, whatever his name is.
Oh yeah, Rocher or whatever it is. Yeah, just somebody who has a immediately transferable skill who I can build, who fills a need that I could build around. Something like that. Number 1 pick in this draft isn't worth a ton, but that's probably why you're able to trade it for Karl Anthony Towns. So, I don't love it, but it's out there. DeAndre Hunter at least is a win.
DeAndre Hunter, like lowest, not a guy. I'm another guy. I'm just like,
Yeah, I
he's
think most
making
people are
what?
there.
But
Yeah.
but like number one pick. If Atlanta's gonna keep running this, yeah, I could talk myself into that. It's bold at the very least.
Karl Anthony Towns to Toronto for Bruce Brown, Kelly Olynyk, and Grady Dick, and maybe some picks. Like that's not
Let me ask you. Let me ask you one thing about before I'm more intrigued with the Atlanta one. Gut take, just because
Okay.
of the number one pick. But maybe that's just like the branding of the number one pick. Let me also ask this though: are we gonna get a summer of more player for player trades with fewer picks? Because I've been thinking that with like Cavs trades, but also this Carl trade. It's like, could you see a world where it's just like his salary is so much, even if he's like nominally an all star, where it's like kind of just maybe not a lot of picks involved, just because there's so much money.
Yes, and also, and that's a great point, but also because nobody really likes this draft, so the picks in this draft aren't worth as much.
Yeah.
And you usually do want, like, as much as we love the future first round picks and unprotected in 2029 and stuff, front offices want stuff now because they don't know that it's going to be
Yeah.
employed in 2030. So you do need a little bit of a level of, I have something now and I have hope in the future. And the hope in the future stuff is just a seatbelt for a front office executive. The stuff now is what you're really working with. But and the other part of it too is I think the league is wide open. Again, we're gonna have 6 champions in 6 years. The idea of, hey, the Warriors are a dynasty. Let's just wait this thing out and let's Sam Presti this thing and just go get draft picks and be ready to pounce when this thing is over. There's teams that are ready to pounce right now, and I think that's why we're gonna see such a crazy summer in general, or why some people are projecting it to be a crazy summer. I'm with you. I don't love the Toronto one. I just thought it might be interesting for them. Karl Anthony Towns to the New Orleans Pelicans
Mm.
for C.J. McCollum, Larry Nance, and one of the young guys like Jordan Hawkins. I think would work under the cap. So you get a 3-point shooter. You get McCollum as another ball handler whose contract is up in 2 years, and it's smaller, like $10 million, $15 million less than what Towns is making. Not as long. And Larry Nance, who gives you just another kind of versatile body in the front court to toy around with if you're losing Towns. I don't hate it. It would be a little extreme to be giving another guard that much money in CJ McCollum, but he does answer some of the questions that they have. I don't know that I do this if I'm the Wolves.
Yeah, you're skewed a little small at guard then with like Conley and McCollum and like
Yeah.
it's just then you're just like it's like I don't know how you're stacking all those guys up in a way that makes sense. But if I'm the Pelicans, I think I'm pretty into that.
Towns to Portland for Jeremy Grant and Malcolm Brogdon. And now you're probably starting Grant and McDaniels on the perimeter at your forward
Yep.
spots. Naz Reid still comes off the bench. You
Yep.
still got Gobert in the middle. And then you've got Brogdon as a third guard, who won Sixth Man of the Year a couple of years ago.
Dominating, best shooting big man of all time, front court pairing in Portland, championship Portland 2025.
And Scoot Henderson and Shaden Sharp. I don't mind that as a young core for them.
Yeah, I actually don't like that. I like that might be my favorite one, Wes. Portland, Carlo to Portland.
That's why I left it save the best for last.
That's good. I like that one. That's my favorite one. You could probably get a pick out of that too from Portland.
Yep.
Although like it's kind of a wash on the money a little bit, even though Carl's probably
It's almost
making a
exact.
little more.
It's almost exact
Oh,
money
okay.
between if you combine Grant and Brogdon coming in and Towns going out. And by the way, because of their spot against the second apron, Minnesota cannot aggregate salaries in a trade going out, and they can't take back more money in a deal. So that's part of the constraints of what I was dealing with in making these fake trades. But if you're Minnesota, you add Grant to McDaniels. It gives you another wing defender, so you don't have to ask Anthony Edwards to guard Kyrie or Luka or guys or against teams like that. And you're really not losing much in the rebounding department. Minnesota's quietly not a great rebounding team. Jeremy Grant, not a great rebounder despite his size, but a guy who can go get a bucket and handle the ball a little bit, and Brogdon adds that other guy, and you can still go big with the Naz Reid Gobert pairing when you're playing Denver. So
Yeah, I like it. I know if I'm rushing out to do any of those, but I like the Hawks one. I like the Portland one. Those are my two favorites.
yeah, I bet if these other teams called Minnesota with any of these deals, they would probably just say, we're just not ready to make that decision yet. But if this is still on the table in a year, we'll think about it.
Yeah. But this to bring this full circle with them. What if Tim Conley's not the one making the decision and it's someone who didn't build? It's like, what if it's like, We don't know. Like that's maybe the bigger variable than the court stuff. It's like, if Tim Conley, who built this team, is not the one doing this, then who knows?
Yep.
Who could be in charge? I don't know. What a summer. I can't wait. NBA summer is always fun. This feels like it's going to be a particularly weird one, Wes. Pretty excited.
Same.
Pretty excited. We're going to end there, though. Luka Doncic and the Dallas Mavericks versus Jason Tatum and the Boston Celtics, the NBA Finals. That's coming up. We'll preview that in a bunch of ways coming up on next week's Just Basketball shows. We'll be back with you Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Myself, Wes, Brendan Clean coming at you 3 times a week. Use promo code JustBasketball at BetMGM to deposit $10 and place your first wager in any game, and you get up to $1,500 back in bonus bets if that bet loses. We'll make finals picks, preview the X's and O's, preview the X Factors, talk about all the storylines going into the finals next week. Enjoy your weekend. Enjoy the hoops. The Just Basketball show. Be well, everyone. Have a great weekend.